Let me open with this quote image because it's the most ridiculous thing you're going to read. And like, when you type something like this, how do you type this with any just complete lack of self-awareness? Never stops thinking like, oh, yeah, there are people lining up to support this comic, support this guy in his comic. Kind of weird that you would refer to it as a reception to the comic that has got overwhelming support, a huge, huge hit. Has been mostly negative. That's negative to sell massive amounts of comic for an independent comic guy who's, I think it's his first comic. That's a negative reception. What's the color of the sky in your world where you think that's insane? That's an insane copium. Click links, join channel, or Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram's a little bit of a free speech zone, so be asbestos panties. So when the mainstream media and PayPal and Reddit go long knives out for Eric July with RIPPAVERSE, you know that you're over the target. Even if you weren't interested in Eric July's stuff, they say you've got the right enemies. Yeah, it brings a little of attention to looking at Eric July and seeing like how triggered the mainstream is. The kings and queens don't like it when the pawns go off script. So the bankers, the financial institutions, the movers and shakers come for Eric July. Create your own, just write your own comics. Create your own comics, guys. Yeah, it's kind of weird when you don't even want to allow us to do that. You guys should just create your own country. Yeah, where commies get the helicopter. So why does a guy making comics upset the puppet master so much? And if you want to check out the comic, just punch in RIPPAVERSE to a search engine. It'll take you to his website where you can buy the comic. July is going against the narrative. You must accept cultural Bolshevism in comics, or you are a wrong thinker, wrecker of progress, who must be destroyed. Diversity of thought is not allowed. Even saying that phrase triggers them. They start going, you guys are liberals, right? Support free speech and the open marketplace of ideas and diversity of thought. No, see, but. And then there's that but where, yeah, we support free speech, but not hate speech. Oh, so why don't you just come out and say that you don't support free speech? Because that is, in fact, a left-wing position nowadays, that they, in fact, do not support free speech. And it's weird to see the mainstream media come out against free speech, which they have done several times. And there's not really a divide within the comic book community online. Either you're buying the comic or you're not. And if you're not buying the comic, then why do you care? Why don't you just move on with your life? Oh, there's some comic. It says it's anti-woke. Well, I'm a woke Bolshevik. This comic's probably not for me. I should probably just move on with my life. Maybe I'll go for a jog. Maybe I'll do a little gardening. Maybe I'll just ignore something that is not in perfect accordance with my belief system. No, because then you wouldn't be an NPC. I must destroy this, and I must destroy Eric July. I must quickly. These people will scroll through his social media to try to find something about him. It's like, I don't know what you would find, or I don't know why you like the people on Twitter, the comic kids on Twitter, just lose their minds when somebody goes off script. So what happened? A guy writes a comic. He just writes a comic book. It shouldn't be such a big deal, but he also calls it, I think he called it anti-woke, something like that. And the thing is, like, what exactly does that mean? Who knows? Honestly, the comic might still be woke, because sometimes people, they think they're further down the rabbit hole than they actually are. You'll notice, like, when you start getting red pilled, that there's still deeper and deeper red pills to take. Because washing off Marxist propaganda, it's a layered thing. You just keep getting more and more based as you go on. But just saying it's anti-woke or it's not woke is enough to trigger these people, because one, it's a huge hit for an independent comic seller, and two, Eric is the wrong victim, which is how the left thinks of people. You're just a tool to the left. The Bolsheviks use race to foment discord. They've been doing it for almost 100 years now. They are parasites. All they can do is destroy. They do it to everything they touch, from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars. So July is not playing the role that the Marxist masters have assigned to him. But think about how little it took for them to attack him. He is a POC dude making a POC comic, or at least from it looks like from the images I've seen, but he calls it non-woke. So for whatever reason he wants to call it non-woke, July is not on the side of the woke. it shouldn't be a big deal. Surely we value different opinions. Left, right, globalists, nationalists. Shouldn't all voices be heard? No, because July and all of us, everyone, is just a puppet to them. But then he started to cut the cords and went rogue. So a POC guy making a POC comic, usually the commie kids on Twitter are all over that kind of stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just, oh, look, a shield. I can use this person as a shield. It's like, and to be fair, both left and right does that. They use people as pawns because they assume a POC is going to be their puppet. And the thing is, a lot of the time, they're right. It's like, gee, how come politicians aren't doing anything for my community? Because they already know they have your vote. Oh, yeah, maybe you should try voting differently. But we voted this way for the past 50 years, and we got us to where we are now. Yeah, maybe you should try voting differently. Maybe you should try something differently if your best thinking got you here. But the commie kids don't realize that they are also puppets. Soros, Rothschilds, Schwab, BlackRock, Vanguard. Those are some of the names of the puppet masters. The commie kids on Twitter with pronouns are just useful idiots. Instead of worrying about some guy writing a comic book, which in the big scheme of things, like even if this thing hits, it's already hit millions of dollars. I hope it is even more wildly successful. In the big scheme of comics, I mean, comics is $1 billion industry. Why don't these kids start looking about like, why don't we start cutting our own cords instead of being in perfect alignment with corporate mainstream media? Do left-wing kids ever realize that they're just regurgitating CNN and corporate America talking points, that they are the NPCs? Oh, was it Occupy Wall Street? And I don't know, 5 or 10 years later, Bank of America and Chase Bank are funding these left-wing organizations. Gee, Twitter kids, gee, NPCs, gee, Antifa, do you think perhaps you've been subverted? Oh, no, that's not possible. We are all thinking for ourselves, as they say that in unison. Yeah, except you're being funded by Soros. It kind of feels like that's what subversion looks like. I mean, pretty much the definition. So left-wing Twitter kids are the perfect... they're in perfect alignment with this bovine herd of the left wing. Comicsgate and people who reject Bolshevik propaganda are the ones who are thinking for themselves. No, you guys are not in perfect alignment, and you must be Germans in the 1930s. Is it possible that like everything you've been taught from the mainstream, your mainstream academia to the mainstream media, is it possible that you guys are the NPCs? I mean, if anything, if we're going against the narrative, then it's more likely that we are thinking for ourselves. And, for the love of God, please read about the history of Russia and the Bolshevism. If you study communism, you will not be a communist. You will be a very hardcore nationalist. The left-wing kids are so triggered because what they view as a pet has rejected. It's the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. What they think about as are their ideals. They're not the Twitter. The ideas are not originating from these Twitter kids, but that's why it feels so personal to them. But it's not their ideas. They're just parroting Karl Marx, aka Moses Mordecai Levy's talking points from a Communist Manifesto or the Frankfurt School or Saul Alinsky. It's like, my brother in Christ, you're the NPC. This is why. When like Mark Waid and the comic book industry lost their minds over Richard Myers and Comicsgate. Comicsgate was the start of the rejection of the Marxist narrative. Oh yeah, hey, we don't want to support anti-white misandrist comics. Why would we? We're awesome. We know we're awesome. Why would we support comics that are a hateful, racist lie? Every comic has Blonde Man Bat. It doesn't make sense, which is why mainstream comic sales have been declining. And Comicsgate was born. I mean, the only reason Comicsgate was able to spring into life is because the mainstream was so bad. It was so full of Genesis, because it was so full of fertilizer that Fresh Life was able to grow. If mainstream comics were absolutely killing the game, then Richard Meyer, Diversity in Comics, it wouldn't have been a huge channel, and his crowdfunded campaign would have been like $50,000, and that would have been a solid hit at the time to hit that. But instead, because of the mainstream industry being so toxic and Mark Waid being such an evil person, it hit $400,000 because of his, oddly enough, his tortious interference, but the damages were, it's the rare case where someone's bad acts resulted in a positive increase in your damages. Like, they actually helped you by their interference. So it's kind of a weird situation. Because without Mark Waid getting involved, that thing would have hit $200,000. And at the time, Jawbreakers, that would have been a massive success. But thanks to the toxic industry, it's like they gave birth to Comicsgate. It would, like, none of this would have been possible without the mainstream industry. It's like Trump wouldn't have been elected without the mainstream media giving him $2 billion of free publicity. So this article said that the reception to the comic has been mostly negative. If a negative reception is 7 figures, what does a positive reception look like? Would the crowds put Eric on a throne and appoint him comic king of the year? Honestly, they probably should, because it's the biggest Comicsgate associated campaign or independent campaign, I think, that's not a soy boy campaign of the year for sure. I think number 2 would have been Doug TenNapel. Number 3 would have been Ethan Van Sciver. So these soy people hate Eric more than guys like Ethan Van Sciver or Richard Meyer, because they already view Ethan as, oh, Ethan, yeah, he's already a Nazi because he signed his name in a box and it looks like a box. Oh, okay. I mean, usually you need a little bit more due process before you labeled somebody something. It's kind of weird that you just call everyone who disagrees with you anything in any way, shape, or form a German of the 1930s. They didn't expect anything of someone like Ethan. But Eric also joining the Nazi Party. Congratulations and welcome, brother. We'll give you your Hugo Boss and Luger. It feels like a deeper rejection to them because he's the wrong skin tone. The Nazi Party is amazingly diverse. These, and actually, it was diverse back in the 40s too, which is like history is lies that your teacher tells you. The good guys win every war, and then it's like, gee, I can't help but wonder if this history is accurate in every way. So the funny thing is I'm sure that the comic is not going to have the hero, like, it's not going to be based. He's not going to go fight the bankers in the media or something. It's just going to be a normal, simple comic, like all of Comicsgate. They're just fun, normal comics where the blonde man isn't bad in every single issue. It's like, you don't have to put people down. RIPPAVERSE comics. You don't have to put people down to elevate people. Like the old days of writing comics, writing good stories, is you got good guys and bad guys. It's kind of the shift from the left from it was a class-based pre-1990s, and then as the demographics shift and the globalists kind of shifted from liberalism to globalism, they saw that class wasn't going to be enough of a dividing line to foment discord, so they switched into race. And that's kind of like, oh, so like, what do you guys, like, what you're basing your argument on? It's like, oh, subversion, just complete and total subversion. How's that working out for you? Well, it doesn't actually help anyone, but it helps the bankers and the financial institutions. Subvert the enemy. The best way to control the opposition is to become the opposition. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.